So let's talk about being of service. This is such an important topic in one way, because this was really starts us out in life itself. I mean, by the way, today's color is yellow. All right, it's that sunshine, this again, a solar plex energy, and it all has to do with the theme of being abundant. Abundant energy, abundant purpose, abundance. So there's always something about abundance. The other side of that, other side of abundance is gossip. You know, when people say things about you or about other people, that's the opposite of abundance, because that sort of implodes everything other people are wanting to do that is a good reason. And then at the same time, they're complaining that they're not getting the things that they want. And so they think it's other people's doing or other lack of opportunity or anything. And it isn't. It's because they're poking at something that they want, and all they have to do is just want it, rather than having the belief that if I poke at somebody, they're going to have less success, and that success will come to me. Well, that's impossible. You can't do that. That's there's no such thing as undermining somebody and whatever success they would have enjoyed you're getting. I mean, that's just like saying I want other people to be healthy, so I'm going to make myself sick. Like it doesn't work that way. It works. Everybody has their own energy and their own manifestational channels, and then that's how they do it. So today we're going to talk a little bit about being of service. And this is one of the things that we want to, because this is really our profession, right? When we first start out, what do we want to really do? And what do we want to be on this earth? What kind of mark or impact do we want to make on this earth? And in the beginning, it all relates to, okay, I'll be doing various things, and it's going to be for money so that I could, buy a home, buy a car, I have a certain level of standard of living that, want to enjoy and so on. And that's fine. And one of the simplest ways is that, some people will choose only those professions that pay a lot, and so as long as it's for short term, like for instance, if when you're young you get an opportunity, let's say to go to Africa to either mine diamonds, or you're going to up north in Canada, we have various locations where they pay a lot of money for drilling for oil. And it's grueling work. So in 6 months, you'll make as much as you would all year anywhere else. And that's okay for a short term, because you're not really doing it because you love it. You're not doing it because it's your purpose. It's just that if you have a goal, I want to get someplace, and if I go there, let's say for 2 years, that'll give me enough money so I could buy a home, and then I'll do something after. That's okay. But if you're doing that for 20 years and all you want is just more money, then there is sort of a blowback a little bit in one way. And what that means is that your purpose starts to dwindle. You don't feel you're really making an impact, because all your decisions are based on money, or based on what you can get out of whatever the earth is giving. All right. So when we look at that, how can we be of service? What is the difference? And what is the real process of going from I'm just doing this for money to being able to be helpful, to have a higher purpose, to have this being of service energy. All right. And this is really what it's all about, because it is all about helping. Now, whenever we look at anything that we're doing on this earth, there's actually 4 factors of how the earth and how our professions are laid out in our society. Okay, there's 4 different ways, or 4 aspects of it. The first aspect is the work that you love. There are some work that you will absolutely love doing. When we're young, some of the guys were saying, "Oh, I would love to get a job at a place on the beach, and I would be hired to put suntan lotion on all the models." The things you would, let's say, love to do. All right, that's just one example. The other one is what the world needs at this time in history. I mean, if you were wanting to do something, what does the world need? Like, and you just look around the world, what does it need? Does it need technology? What does it need for it to move forward? The third aspect is the things that they pay for. In other words, like the oil rigs and like anything that it just gives the largest amount of money. So there's that aspect. Then the last one is what you're good at. What are you good at? Do you have a knack for numbers? Do you have a knack for being outside? Do you have a knack with animals? Then you might be sort of slanting on being a veterinarian or an assistant to being like one like that. But what Spirit says is that out of those four aspects, usually we hit two of them. One example is, let's say we take work that you love and we combine it with what the world needs. Okay, when you combine those two together, what the world needs and what you love doing, that's called a mission. Okay, if we take what the world needs to what you're being paid for, so let's say the world needs more oil and they're paying a lot of money for people to drill for oil and attain oil. So that's called a vocation. Something that you're just getting paid because just right now, this is what the world is providing or what the world needs in that societal thing. If we take what you're being paid for to what you're good at, all right, that's called a profession, right? If you're good at teaching, let's say, or if you're good at sales, you know, and you're being paid a lot for that, then that would be sort of a profession, right? Is that profession sales? If you combine work that you love and what you're good at, when those two are combined, you get a passion. All right. A lot of people will, let's say, want to go to Africa because it's something they would love to do. And they're really good at, let's say, getting water from an area where there's no water. Okay. They're good at that. And so they combine those two together. But this is why it doesn't pay very much, because it's not a factor as part of that profession or part of that thing that you're doing. So what happens is when we combine all of those together, all four aspects, the Japanese regard this, and I hope I can pronounce this properly, it's called ikigai. An ikigai is a Japanese term for reason for being. The things that you do that has the purpose of love for all, everyone sort of benefits. Having some direction, okay? And it just makes one's life worthwhile. That's what Akita means. So those two that we talked about that most people are hitting, this particular one, the Ikigai, means that you're hitting all four. So you're being paid for something, you love what you do, you have a knack of doing it, and you have what the world needs. So when you get all those four factors together, that is absolutely the best situation ever, because then that's where the happiness will come from, because everything that you're doing gives you happiness. You love to do it. You have a knack for doing it. All right. Not everybody is good in sales, but they do it because it might pay the bill. Right. So there's going to be some satisfaction that's not going to be there if you're just taking something because it's a short term and I got to do the sales thing. All right. But once you decide whatever it is that you're going to do, you want to be of service, you want to be a mission on this earth, that's when people will start to treat you differently. And you won't notice it right away. But in the conversations you'll have with people at a party or even within your family, as soon as you start telling them of the kind of plans you're going to have. So let's use an example that you have an organization, let's say in Africa, that's looking to bring water to a place that's not that great in water, but you have a knack for it. And so I want to go there and I want to be able to give back to the world. You'll start to be treated a little differently. They'll start to ridicule you. They'll start to test you in various ways. What are you doing that for? I mean, have you thought about your family? Like, we're not going to see you very often. In other words, you're going to have all kinds of blowbacks in terms of how they are reacting to what you feel you need to do. And they are completely different. What you feel you need to do and other people's reactions have nothing to do with each other. But what some people will do is they hear, I don't know why you're doing that. It brings them doubt. Am I doing the right thing? Should I do this? What got me on this track in the first place? And sometimes it's just a series of things, you know? Like if you're good at teaching, you know, that's what you need to do is teach people, be able to relay that information. But what you'll notice also is how other people use their energies to respond. I mean, we talked about the journey to react last week. If you haven't, we weren't at this class last week, check that out. It's on our YouTube channel, and this class is sort of a continuation of that one. I don't want to go too much into it because we don't have that much time. However, all it is basically is we're working ourselves to react in a certain way based on what we think we need to do. You've heard of the case where this is something that I just feel I need to do, and it makes no sense. It makes no, there's no way that I could convince somebody that I'm doing the right thing, right? You know, you're trying to convince other people. They're not there to be convinced that they're wrong, and you're not there to convince them that you're right. So there's two different things there. So their arguments are always coming up. But when you're looking at being a parent is really a tough job, because one of the hardest things a parent has to do is to send their kids out to the world knowing that the world is cruel. And if they decide that they want to make a difference in life, if you've taught them that, to be respectful with other people and to help them in some way, and somehow they get this idea, whatever it is, they just want to do something for others, right? And it's really hard for a parent to let that go, because you know that they're going to be going through many challenges to get there, and it's really going to be tough on them. Now, one thing that we know for sure is that if we take disrespectful people, all right, and so this is all comes to do with respect. If we take a respectable person, they are the ones that usually will choose those options to help others. I mean, think about it. If you're disrespectful, where is your energy? It's all about who? It's about me. How I'm going to benefit. How much are you going to pay me? What are you going to do so that I am happy? What are you going to do so that I get everything? So only a disrespectful person will have that energy in them. And here's another thing. A disrespectful person is by far the most predictable person ever, because the only thing that motivates them is money or an equivalent reward. All right. Now, I want you to think about that for a second. When a person is only thinking of themselves, the only motivator that they can do, I mean, you talk about, oh, look how big a wider lens or an overseeing this project, how it will help so many people. I don't care. How much are you going to pay me? Is their response, right? So it's very predictable. It's so easy to manipulate a disrespectful person. I mean, I've heard of cases where a person that's in a company and they disrespect everybody. They don't want anybody to be around them. All they care about when they go for a review is how much money you're going to pay me, so I still keep working for this company, only for them to leave that company with no notice, no reason, for $1 extra an hour. That's it. You're going to pay me an extra, and I've seen it as low as $1. I've seen it as high as $10 and $5, yes. But the latest one I've seen, for $1 an hour more, you'd leave a company that would potentially treat you right? And why would that be? Why would somebody just choose that? Because they're predictable. That's why it's so very, very easy to manipulate a disrespected person. Now, here's the thing. If a child is disrespectful, in time, they will be an adult with the same qualities, because that's all they know. That's all they know. And how did they get that? What Spirit is saying, as far as the mission goes, what happens is when they want to go sort of outside those blocks, they are hindered often by bribes or by various things that will reward them for the exact conduct you're trying to get them to avoid or not do. So if they're disrespectful to other kids, let's say, well, how about we go for ice cream? If you stop being disrespectful, we'll go for ice cream. And then they stop. Oh, yeah, okay. So they're being paid for morality. So they go for ice cream, they're happy, realizing, hey, if I want more ice cream, they figure it out very quickly, right? I'll be disrespectful again, and then I'll get this reward again. What happens as teenagers? They are disrespecting, their friends. They don't care. They make promises. They don't keep it. Who cares? Like nothing matters as long as I'm happy. And then when a parent sees that, or a guardian or whoever, or coach, or anybody that's in authority might say, I'll tell you what, if you're respectful over the next couple of weeks, you can have my car for the weekend on your date. Oh, okay, I'll be respectful, and they'll do those things to be respectful as a reward. But you can't legislate morality. You can't reward morality or being respectful, because that should just come automatically. If you have to reward it with money, here's the thing. We all know that money has different energies, and most of it is rather low energy. I mean, when you get somebody that all they think about is money, I got to get this money. Those are people that are the poorest in this country. They are. You talk to anybody, what would make your life better? And they wouldn't say things like, oh, what would make it so nice is if I could just be on a beach somewhere in the tropics, so I can just be in the ocean or something. No, I want $1 million. They're not even looking for experiences anymore. It's all about the money. And then we sort of gauge of what they're going to spend the money on. And it's all on frivolous stuff. And in a very short time, they're broke again. So money wasn't the answer. And then they're unhappy after they're broke, because now they need another million, right? So when we start to reward disrespect and we start to reward other things, it gets in the way of being in service, because they're opposite ends. When we are in service, we are there for others. We are there because we want to please others. We want to do other things, right? And that's the whole idea. And when we are swayed just simply by money, we get very easily manipulated. So you got to ask the question: Do I want my kids to be manipulated in any way? Most parents will say no. However, that's what happens when they get into the world and all they see is, if you can work for us, I'll give you an extra $1 an hour or an extra $5 an hour, or we'll throw in a gas allowance or something so you can get to work. And if it will give you more sick leave, that kind of thing, some kind of reward. But here's the thing. If you get a respectful person, someone who thinks of others, they're going to look at that offer and bring in a few more aspects of their job. One of them will be, how do I enjoy working with the coworkers I have right now? We get along great. We're always laughing. We have a good time. And the company recognizes my worth. Every time they launch a new product, they'll say, Tony, what do you think? Do you think this will work? And they ask actually for my feedback. What do I think? And in some way, I feel I'm contributing to the success of the company. So I take that as value. Or things like they invite you into an important meeting, but you don't have the title of senior manager. You have you're like in sales, or you're in other parts of it where you're relatively low on the totem pole, but they bring you in because they want a perspective of how the average worker within the company will think. We're going to launch this product and this is how we're going to do it. I don't think it'll work because shipping and receiving, and I know Bob, he gets all upset when things are too much on a pallet and they get too heavy. It won't work the way you're doing it. Oh, we never thought of the shipping and receiving. Thank you. In other words, when you are valued and you have a higher sort of value about yourself because you're working for that company, more money won't sway you. It won't. Even if they give you a car, like a car allowance, or even if they give you more money because you're happy where you are. And I've heard this from so many people, so many, I've lost count over the years, They said, I know I could make more money somewhere else, but I like working here. I hear that all the time, you know. And so those are people that are respectful. Those people look at other people as if I leave, it'll be a huge impact. It'll be a void. They it's not like they wouldn't still be able to get along without me, but I know it'll be an impact. And you know what? I'm still happy where I am. I'm making some kind of an impact. I'm getting paid okay. Like it's fine. It's okay. But a disrespectful person would never do that. It's always at the highest bidder, and I don't care where I work. And if those people don't want me, I'll go somewhere else where I'll get even more money to be paid, because they think they have a knack. So you still have to be good at what you do, but they use that talent for part of the negotiation to get to a better place. It's not the same thing. Okay. So what it comes down to is when we become of service, one thing we'll have to also realize is that, and we've already realized this by the time we get to this point in our life, is that there are more struggles and there's more stress in our imagination than there is in reality. Actually, Seneca had that quote, and that is so true. When we look at whatever the stresses that we're going through, most of it is in reality. If you just listen to the words of the people when they start talking, yeah, I don't know if this job is going to be secure enough. What if they lay me off? And then if they do that, I won't be able to pay my mortgage. I'll lose my house. I'll lose my car. I'll be on the street. But none of that's happening. In other words, it's not happening in real life. It's happening in your mind. And yes, these are all insecurities, but those are coming from an overactive imagination. You're using that vision that you have the capability of in a negative way, because you feel that what good is it if unless I can get further ahead? But the real security, you know where it is? It's right between your head and your heart. It's all in that area, is how that energy travels in there. Like it's just incredible that when we find that there's more pain, more insecurities in our head, our bodies start feeling that too. I'm not sure if you've noticed that. There's usually a bit of a delay because the body doesn't respond right away. But over a long period of time, if you've been angry, if you've been irritated, frustrated, if you've been in a very low energy state, you'll also find that you'll find it harder to walk. Your knees are going to be in bad shape. Any joints, so ankles, knees, hips, will all be saying the same thing, because these all have to do with being able to stand up for yourself. It's about security, right? You're standing up for yourself. And if you don't, if you're complaining about where you are, then that ability to stand up for yourself will start to come down energetically. Then your body picks that up and then reverberates that or mirrors that in your body, where you can't start standing up straight for yourself. Your back will be sore. Your knees will be out. You won't have the same strength, okay, because you feel that you can't stand up for yourself. And so when we look at all of those, when we look at getting into that helpful state where we want to be in this higher purpose, we want to do things that are worthwhile, you also have to realize you're going to be criticized and ridiculed. And when that happens, how does that affect you? What is your reaction? Somebody said that when I argue with the person, I'm actually giving the peace that's inside of me, and I'm giving it to that other person. Because what happens after the argument? They're not there to be convinced that you're right, and you're not there to be convinced that they're wrong, right? So, in other words, the whole aspect is it's just a bouncing ball coming and going. There is no solution. And so after that argument, let's say, how do you feel? Usually you'll feel lower vibration than you did when you started. So a lot of people have this idea that if there is something on social media, somebody posts something, you're a loser, you're a fraud, you'll never amount to anything, or any other rude comments or any other ridicule. If you respond to that and it's going back and forth, it is coming at a cost for you, because you're not going to be at the same point. It doesn't mean you don't want to stand up for yourself. It means Spirit is saying to pick your battles. Pick your battles. To win something or to try to convince somebody on social media, it's just not the right platform to do that. Social media is good for looking at comments, see what other people are thinking, and that. But I've seen arguments going back and forth, and in the end, it's like everyone's even more confused than when they started because there's so many aspects that comes up. But really, when it comes down to it, the answer is no. I'm not going to be part of that. That's not the right platform. So you're going to let it go. I don't care what they say about me, because they're only seeing me based on their eyes. They're not seeing the truth. They're seeing how they are seeing me, and that's usually false. So there's no point in getting involved, right? So it's how you respond is this incredible thing. Now here's another thing. If you have a bad response or a bad experience with something, let's say something happens to you, it's a very bad experience. A couple of examples came to mind over the years that I've been doing things, like bringing in a roommate. In my earlier years, I did that. Somebody said, is it okay if I just and this was their way they asked, is it okay if I crash at your place for the weekend? I'm just going through a point right now, and I need just a place to stay. This didn't happen to me. I'm just sort of wanting to protect the other person that told me the story. I just need it for the weekend. They ended up staying for 2 years. In the beginning, they paid a little bit of rent, and as the months were going, you could guess it, they paid less and less rent. Eventually, they paid no rent. Then they said, I don't have a job. I can't even pay you anything. Yet they're still using your phone, make long distance calls. They're still eating everything out of your fridge. They're still at home when you're not home. They're still bringing friends around because now they could entertain because they have a place and they had food. And it's eventually the homeowners got so upset that they had to move, and they said, oh yeah, we're moving to a smaller place. There's no room for a roommate. And so that's how they got rid of this person, by moving themselves after 2 years. So let's say an experience like that happens to you. Though what the masses do is they'll take that experience and say, oh, I got to forget about this experience. This was horrid. I would not want to have this happen again. So they want to forget it. What Spirit is saying, and I've heard others comment on this as well, is that those that want to forget a bad experience are a fool, because that happened to you for a reason. And what you want to do with that energy is keep it so that you don't forget, but the hurt you need to work on. If it hurt you inside, like somebody lied to you and that kind of hurt, yeah, that kind of stuff we need to work through with energy so that we can release that. But we can't forget the event. And what we do with that is, when a similar situation happens with someone else, like let's say you're going to work and you overhear somebody saying, yeah, I'm thinking of bringing in a roommate, and it's a young person, maybe very similar to the age you said, okay, what could possibly go wrong with a roommate that I like right now? To be able to share your experience, not in a condemning way, but just say, as part of your decision making on a roommate, this is what happened to me, and you could use it for you want. I'm not saying don't bring a roommate in. I'm just saying this is what happened to me. And I've let it go, but this is what other aspects that you might not have thought of bringing in this roommate, and have that added to whatever it is that they're doing. And what Spirit is saying, that's when that energy fully sort of clears itself within your system, because now you were able to take that bad situation to help another one's fate, right? Now they might think, well, wait a second. No, I don't want that. We got kids. And they'll say, okay, actually, this is a new thing. I never thought it could go in this direction. I'm not saying it will. I'm just saying this is a possibility. So they could decide, and if they decide not to and save themselves that heartache or that exasperation, then you've given something of yourself. Again, it's a being of service. You're using a negative energy as a positive thing for someone else to benefit for. Because, if we're smart, we don't want to experience every possible thing that could go wrong in our life, experience it firsthand. Why would we want that? I would like to perhaps draw on other people's experience to think, oh, I never thought of that. Oh, gee, that okay. Thank you for telling me. Now I can make a more informed decision. And if I still decide to bring in a roommate, well, now I'm going to have conditions. I'm going to have to say, okay, well, this is the situation that goes. By Monday, you got to be out because I have someone else coming in. You can tell them that, right? And this way, it won't go into can you leave me till Wednesday, then leave me till Saturday, then leave me till Wednesday, leave me to Saturday. Then he tries to get you every 3 or 4 days, and that could happen for 2 years. It's possible. So when we look at how we can help others, this is another reason. Use your experience to help others so that they don't have to have that fate. Now, going back to the disrespectful person, the person that just thinks of themselves and no one else, they just only think of what benefits them. Their reaction, what they would do is they would be silent. Because, well, if it happened to me, let someone else learn all the other aspects of it. And they will silently withdraw that information, knowing full well that the person's fate will be a certain way, and laugh at them. Now, okay, so they will laugh at people's misfortune because they don't care. And it doesn't mean we have to change them. That's not our job. But to be aware of it, when somebody disrespectful comments on you, it's okay, I got you. This is a person that doesn't care for anybody, let alone me. Who am I to make any kind of an impact when a disrespectful person says something disrespectful and want to get a rise out of me? I don't buy that. But if an intelligent person says, okay, Tony, you have a point. This, make it. But have you thought of this? That's respectful. And I'm more apt to look at something like that because they're approaching it from a perspective of, I have something that might help you. Maybe something happened to them as a bad experience and want to share it with me. So I would be open for that kind of message, right? But if someone just says that, I'm a loser, I don't know what you're doing. You're doing all these classes. You're not really charging for it. Gee, maybe it's not worth anything. It has no impact on me, because that's a disrespectful comment. They don't even know the history of all these things that a person might be doing. And they're just flippantly saying and they have no facts or anything. So I have no reaction to that. In other words, I'm not going to get into something that is going to potentially be harming my energy, lowering my energy. In this meditation, we're going to be playing the sunlight meditation on this one. And those that are used to just lying back in the chair and closing your eyes and seeing this, I want you to just visualize the sun in every aspect. And I want you to go in all forms of the world, like go to Hawaii and see what the sun would be like coming up. And then go to South America, go to Japan, in your mind and see what the sun looks like in all these places. And I just want you to ask one thing, because the energy knows where you are in this time in your life. Just simply ask, how can I be of service? What do I need to do? What does the world need? What does the universe need me to do? And this will do a couple of things. The first thing it'll do is, if you're really not sure what you need to be doing, it'll give you messages on where you could focus on. If you do know where you're going, the second part is, if you do know and you've asked this question, what this will do is confirm that you're still on the right path. Okay. So you say, what is it that I need to do? And how can I be of service to you? How can I help you? And we'll see what the voices or what the energies are saying of how you can be of service to this. But it all has to do with the sun. The sun has this beautiful yellow energy, and some people, if you are doing that, if you can envision a sun-like energy within your solar plexus, just burning off everything that wants to control you, anything that wants to say, no, this is a stupid idea. It's just have that inner resolve, knowing that what you're thinking about and what you want to do will have meaning to something else that will be just unexpectedly great. Take a nice deep breath, breathe in the color yellow. Okay, breathe in the color yellow and breathe out the color yellow. And we'll see you in about 15 minutes.